Here are 5 of the more common styles of guide rods that you'll come across in a 1911 or a 2011. This is a STI Recoil Master. You notice it has a smaller spring and a larger spring. This is a one-piece with a hole drilled in it that requires a paper clip or some small wire. This is a STI two-piece that requires a wrench. This is a Dawson Tool-less that requires no tools. And this is a one-piece that does not have a hole drilled in it. And it sometimes requires a bushing wrench and sometimes it does not, depending on how tight your bushing is fit to your slide. The downside to the STI Recoil Master is that it requires this specialized tool to remove it. So if you forget this or lose your tool, you're going to have a really hard time taking the guide rod out of the gun. This one-piece guide rod here with the hole drilled in it requires this paper clip, and of course paper clip is pretty common, or you can use a small Allen wrench or any small piece of wire. So if you forget your tool at home, you're probably going to be able to find something to stick in there to use, but it's still hard keeping up with these small paper clips. This two-piece guide rod system that requires a wrench is not a bad system, but again, if you forget your tools at home, you're probably not going to be able to get your guide rod off. The Dawson Tool-less guide rod is super popular since it came out, because it requires no tools to take in or out of the gun, and it's that easy and quick to remove your guide rod. There's a pin and there's a spring under one end, and so you just press on one end and that lever comes up and catches the reverse plug and captures your spring. Super convenient, really easy, doesn't require a tool. This one-piece guide rod system here comes on the Rock Islands, and it's a little bit different than some of the other ones that you see here. The guide rod goes in first. The bushing must be turned to the left with the slide facing this direction. Your recoil spring goes on, and then your recoil spring plug goes on. Now this is the part that determines if you need the wrench or not. If you can freely move this bushing with your fingers, you may not need a wrench, but if this bushing is fit tight to the slide, you will need a wrench. Let's see if we can get away without a... So that's how it goes in, and to get it out, it's much easier with a wrench. You press down on the plug and move the spring out the front, guide rod out the back. The Dawson Tool-less guide rod is my favorite guide rod to use, but you can't always use it. If you shoot a 6-inch gun, you will not be able to get the guide rod in from the back in this manner. There's just not enough room in this area for a full 6-inch guide rod to go in. So you have to use the two-piece guide rod. You'll put your spring on the guide rod base here, and I've already got my recoil spring plug and bushing in the gun. On a two-piece guide rod system, you would go in from the back with the base, and then you could either slide it on your frame at this point and then screw your guide rod in, or you could try to thread your guide rod onto your base while holding it in your hand, something like that. To assemble the one-piece guide rod with the hole drilled in it, you will put your spring on with the closed end on first. Oftentimes there's a little catch there, a little tightness. If you put the opened end on, there's no catch. So put the spring on the guide rod, the reverse plug goes on, compress the spring, insert the paper clip to capture it. Now I've already got my bull barrel in here, so I will just drop the whole spring assembly in there. Now to release it, I will push forward, remove the pin, and gently let the spring out. And to remove it, it's just the opposite. Compress the spring, put your paper clip in, and remove your guide rod. Now let's put the Dawson Tool-less guide rod in. Spring goes on, reverse plug goes on, drop it in, and release. Take it out, compress the spring, catch the reverse plug, and just like that. In order to remove it, I'll compress the spring. And this keeper, I have noticed a little difference whether I put it on the bottom or the top of the guide rod. The top seems to give it a little bit more clearance. You can see it still doesn't just freely pop out. Sometimes you just wiggle it and kind of compress it just ever so slightly, and it will pop out. Does a tungsten guide rod actually make your gun shoot softer or have less felt recoil? It may, and the reason I say it may is it depends on the weight of your gun. If you have a really heavy gun, adding 2 ounces to it is not going to be as big of an overall percentage as if you have a really light gun. It's like adding 5 horsepower to a 3,000 pound car. You're probably not going to notice it. But if you add 5 horsepower to a go-kart, you're definitely going to notice it. So if you have a really light pistol and you add 2 ounces to the nose of it that doesn't reciprocate with the slide, you're probably going to notice a small difference in the way the gun feels. But if you have a really heavy pistol like this one with a stainless steel grip and a big beefy magwell and a long dust cover, you may not notice a difference because the added 2 ounces is a smaller percentage of the overall weight of the gun. Another benefit of the full-length guide rod is if you have a kink in your spring or a bend in it, say you dropped it on the floor, stepped in it, or for whatever the reason, you got a little kink in it. When your recoil spring goes to compress, it's got to go around this shaft. So if you have a bend in your spring, what can happen is you can have a catch and actually jam your spring up if it's got a little bend in it, or if one of those coils is out of shape. This standard spring plug or standard spring guide may not straighten that spring out, and if it does, sometimes you can even still feel it recoiling really rough. You can feel that spring grinding on the end as it tries to straighten the spring out. So if you've got a kink in your spring and this full-length guide rod is in there, it keeps the spring nice and straight, and there's no way for the spring to bind up. Another reason for a full-length guide rod is just they're easier to take apart than the traditional spring guide is. Depending on your style and method of disassembling your gun, this thing can often shoot out, break a light bulb, or worse, you'd shoot it off in the grass in the middle of a match and not be able to find it. So a full-length guide rod, definitely easier to take apart, especially this Dawson Tool-less one.